the Septic community, Killroy, and the Kraut doxing server. When I got into creating content out here, I swore to myself I would never create anything that was even remotely like the Septic community in format or style. Don't get me wrong, I do find some of it very entertaining and informative. I also find some of the creators to be of high caliber. I just find the community itself to be toxic, as in septic, and don't want myself grouped in with it. In its current incarnation, no one should want to be considered part of that group. With what has been going on in the septic community for a while now, and it culminating into the shit show the community has recently become, I find myself needing to chime in on more than just social media alone in order to put my 2 cents in. Someone has to say what is going to be said in this video, and there will be people who do not like it. It has to be done by someone that isn't directly involved in the community, has any ties to it, or to anyone in it. Someone that has been watching it from the outside, like I have. Meaning, I guess I am volunteering to jump on this grenade to save others from having to do so. As a whole, even though there are good people in the skeptic community, it has become a toxic environment. Part of the reason for it is there are individuals who are themselves toxic and are spreading it like a disease. One of these people is Kraut, who created his little hit squad. Another is Jeff Holiday, his best doxing buddy. And both are neck deep in the whole mass doxing situation that came out of Kraut's Discord server dump. Kraut, his hit squad, and the doxing server. In the dump from that server, it has become very apparent that Kraut and many others were up to no good. They were very open in discussing what they were doing and their plans to accomplish it. They were talking about smearing people's reputations, starting false rumors about them, personally attacking them, deplatforming them, and as we also know, and I have already stated, doxing them as well, plus other things they had in the works. Even if some of it was candidly talked about, which not all of it was, more than enough was discussed out in the open that no one who was a member of the server can honestly claim they had no clue as to what was going on. If you have to try to claim that, and you know who you are, anyone with any semblance of intelligence and common sense knows you are full of shit, unless you literally joined the server right before it was dumped. Here's why I say this. If you are going to join anything, especially when there are SJWs and communists involved, you do your due diligence to make sure you aren't getting involved with something that isn't going to end up with you, say, in jail, for example. Especially when a supposed skeptic who is debunking them is now in bed with them. All it takes to do that is a quick look around to get a feel for the place, nothing more. Most people actually do that. I'm sure they did in this case, regardless of the SJWs and commies. I know I would do it. It's human nature to do so. It's called curiosity. Even if you only went on there the first and only time after the invite, odds are you did it. Some of the one-timers on the server probably did do just that, and it's why they were one-timers. They saw shady shit going on, bowed out as a result, and took the coward's way out. If you see a group of people intending to cause harm to others by slandering them, starting rumors, doxing them, whatever, you are presented with 3 choices. The first, easiest, and a coward's way out, is to just walk away, regardless of your reasons for doing so, whether you realize it or not, whether you want to admit it or not. If you were one of those people who did this, you were condoning what they were doing in taking those actions. You can try to claim otherwise, and you didn't know, but you are full of shit. It is that simple. The second choice in the situation is to join them, whether out of fear or ideological agreement. If out of fear that they will do to you what they are doing to others, that too is a coward's way out. It is also saying, even if under self-perceived duress, you are condoning what they are doing. If you join out of ideological agreement, enough said. You are just as big of a piece of shit, scumbag, as the rest involved. The third and final choice, the only choice anyone with any character would make, which at least one person did initially, and it's why we know what we know, would be exposing what Kraut and his doxing crew, people like Jeff Holiday, were up to. It would also be acceptable with this choice to have confronted them first and try to talk them out of it. But that would not be a requirement, especially when they were paranoid about someone exposing them, because doing so could have tipped the person's hand on exposing their vile actions to the light of day. If you chose one of the coward's ways out, no different if you were a willing participant, you are guilty. Just as guilty as those who are part of the activities out of ideological agreement. You can try to claim otherwise. You can try to claim that you didn't know. You can Claim anything you want in order to try to shift the blame and guilt away from you. That still doesn't change things. You did nothing and allowed for them to slander and personally attack creators they disagree with and gather information to dox them. No differently than if you gave them explicit permission. Ever hear of the term implied consent? According to Law.com's legal dictionary, implied consent is consent when surrounding circumstances exist which would lead a reasonable person to believe that this consent had been given, although no direct, express, or explicit words of agreement had been uttered. As in, those of you trying to claim whatever you are to save your asses after being caught in bed with Kraut and T. Even if it was briefly, you are just as guilty for his and the group's actions. Sorry to tell you that. It is the fact of the matter, though. What if Kraut and his hit squad doxed someone and a whack job killed them? Which is something Kraut was caught admitting he knew full well could happen with Braving Ruin. How would the whole group not be at least partially responsible in some way for that innocent person being murdered? To claim they wouldn't be responsible is no different than the Nazis and German civilians that tried to claim they were not responsible for what happened all around them in the name of the fatherland while they did nothing. What did that type of defense get them? A spot at the gallows next to the rest of the criminals. Why? Because they were just as guilty. They gave their implied consent and allowed it to happen. This situation with Kraut, his hit crew, and all that is associated with them is no different. You can try to claim otherwise, but it isn't. One is just higher on the scale of extreme is all. I bet none of the people who were on the server really thought about things that far though, with what was going on. Maybe they should have. If they did, maybe Kraut would have been exposed before he and his goons did all the damage they did, like with slandering and personally attacking JF, which those involved openly talked about on the Discord server. Here they are doing it. Or they could have prevented the start of Jeff Holiday and Kraut and T's doxing of Coach Red Pill as another example of not thinking things through. The only thing that stopped them from actually doing it was Coach Red Pill getting ahead of it and someone finally exposing Kraut, his goons, and Jeff before they were able to dox him. Now, some are going to claim guilt by association with the case I have made. So what? It's a moot point. When your associations involve you being part of a group that is trying to destroy the lives of people, you better damn well believe you share the guilt. Especially as Kraut has admitted, everyone on the server was alerted to new activity. At one time, parents used to teach their kids that guilt by association, no matter how wrong it can be, is an actual thing. Why? Because ultimately, the company you keep reflects on you, even legally. Ever hear of the RICO Act? It is a prime example of where your associations can really fuck you. Not only that, it could apply to what Kraut and his hit squad were doing. There is evidence they were trying to blackmail and extort at least one person on their little hit list, trying to silence them. That is literally racketeering. Here's what Justice.gov says about RICO. It is unlawful for anyone employed or associated with any enterprise engaged in, or the activities of which affect interstate or foreign commerce, to conduct or participate directly or indirectly in the conduct of such enterprises' affairs through a pattern of racketeering activity or collection of unlawful debt. The Racketeer Influence and Corruption Organization Act was passed by Congress with the declared purpose of seeking to eradicate organized crime in the United States, which this would fall under organized crime. On the face, it might not seem as if what they did was a RICO violation. If we read on, though, it becomes a lot clearer on how what they did is one. A more expansive view holds, in order to be found guilty of violating the RICO statute, the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, 1. That an enterprise existed, 2. That the enterprise affected interstate commerce, 3. That the defendant was associated with or employed by the enterprise, 4. That the defendant engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity, and 5. That the defendant conducted or participated in the conduct of the enterprise through the pattern of racketeering activity through the commission of at least 2 acts of racketeering activity set forth in the indictment. Let's address each of these things the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt in order to make a RICO case. The first one the government must be able to prove is that an enterprise existed. What exactly is their definition of an enterprise? Conveniently, it is on the same page. An enterprise is defined as including any individual, partnership, corporation, association, or other legal entity, and any union or group of individuals associated in fact, although not a legal entity. Many courts have noted that Congress mandated a liberal construction of the RICO statute in order to effectuate its remedial purpose by holding that the term enterprise has an expansive statutory definition. By this definition, it is easily provable that they were an enterprise. After all, they were a group associated with each other in order to collect data on individuals. Their all being on the server is all the proof the government would need. The second thing that the government must prove is the enterprise affected interstate commerce. This one's easily provable. The content creators they were targeting earn their livings from things like monetizations on platforms such as YouTube and through services like Patreon. By targeting the creators as they were, they are affecting the finances of not only them, but also two corporations with my examples. What they are all doing is literally interstate commerce. The third thing the government must prove is that the defendant, which could be multiple ones, are associated with or employed by the enterprise. That's easy enough to prove by their being on the server. That is all that matters for a RICO case for proving association. The fourth and fifth are related, and we will address them together. The fourth on the list that must be proven is that the enterprise engaged in a pattern of racketeering, and the fifth is that there must be at least two acts of it. The multiple acts on JF to smear, discredit, and deplatform him in an attempt to silence him, with how it affects his ability to earn money and monetize his work. With him alone, they would have enough evidence to meet the criteria for those two requirements. If I can make a case for what Kraut and his little paramilitary doxing squad did being a RICO Act violation, with only them just beginning on the doxings, smearings, and attacking their targets, if they didn't get exposed, just think about how much worse things could have become all around. Things would have escalated and someone probably would have got hurt or worse. Just imagine if someone from the group used an individual's dox to physically go after them. Or they hand it to someone that they know will do them harm. Now imagine if it goes too far and the targeted person ends up dead. Guess what? You're all guilty of murder under the RICO Act. That whole thing of the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing is a bitch, huh? So much so, regardless of what those who are part of the server say about their involvement in the questionable, sleazy, and even illegal activities of Kraut and his merry band of doxers, the stench of the group will always follow them, like they stepped in fresh dog shit. Their association with it will always have people questioning their integrity. I know I will always be questioning it, which now brings us to Killroy. Where do I start with Killroy? Probably the best place would be to describe what it is currently turned into. The short answer, a shit show. The long answer, do you have some time? When Killroy was announced after members of the Skeptic community met up at VidCon, I knew it was going to probably end up imploding. I wasn't sure how precisely. I did have scenarios run through my head though. I have to be honest, and I will say this, none of them remotely were like what actually appears to be going to do Killroy in. I did know that two people were probably going to be at the heart of it all, and my gut was proven right. Those people are Base Mama and Jeff Holiday. Two people I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw them. This comes down to the caliber of person with each, too. When it comes to Base Mama, I wasn't familiar with her until VidCon and Dave Cullen supposedly crashing on her couch. Sure, Dave, we all believe you were sleeping on her couch when she's looking at you like this. Looking at you two like that, it is highly doubtful that you were breaking your back on her couch, especially with how you were acting around her. Everything during that time with you two was speaking volumes. One of the things that was very apparently clear was that you were under the power of the clown car. Oops, I mean the wind tunnel. Sorry, I mean the hallway. My bad, I meant to say pussy. That's right, more than a few of us could tell, she had you under the power of her pussy, which for the record, you could do a whole lot better than that basket of crazy. After all, if you hadn't let that succubus wrap her snatch around your Johnson, maybe Killroy wouldn't be the shit show it is now. No offense. Which we are going to get back to you. Right now it's about Base Mama. From seeing her in her videos at VidCon with Dave, my gut was telling me she was fucking nuts and a piece of trash. I have now since had both confirmed. As the first leak from Kraut's doxing server shows, Mama considers herself a bit of an amateur YouTube psychologist. Every woman I have ever known that has studied psychology did so because they are a few fries short of a Happy Meal. She is no exception. But any guy who's been with a crazy chick will attest to this truth about them. Crazy in head, crazy in bed. Which could be why Dave was sucked in by her well-used baby gravy catcher. The fact she is crazy, along with her being a piece of trash, are why Killroy is imploding. Her lack of sanity and ability to accept there are people in this world who don't think the same way she does led to everything that has happened with it. The same with her actively taking part on a doxing server that was targeting guests of the event. Which really has to make one wonder if Base Mama brought out legal documents, which non-competes and non-disclosures are, in order to try to dox those people. Filling out documents like those requires legal names and residences. That's all you need to dox someone. It would have made targeting them easy. Hell, they basically would have doxed themselves to Kraut and Kraut's paramilitary doxing squad and not known it. Which I find it a little too convenient that when the people revolt against the non-disclosure and non-compete agreements happened, all of a sudden, those people she is targeting are being disinvited. Could it be she did it because she wasn't able to get their personal information key to doxing them? Personally, I think that it is a possibility. I wouldn't put it past her. After all, when you are scummy enough to be involved in doxing activities, you don't care about how you come about the information. Now, this takes us to Jeff Holiday, one of her fellow members of Kraut's doxing crew. With his track record, who he is as a person, how he acts, what he says, I can't believe people are actually surprised with how he is neck deep in all of Kraut's doxing shit. I really can't. It wasn't hard to tell that he was going to be a key figure in it all. It was kind of apparent he would be. When we all saw him openly sucking Kraut's dick while fingering his ass during Kraut's doxing rage after storm, the only way someone would be surprised when it comes to Jeff is if he isn't part of something like doxing. I mean that too. Everything he touches, due to his being a piece of white trash and a scumbag, will always turn to shit. Remember that. So Killroy has these two people involved, one organizing it, the other peripherally involved on this note, and a speaker. Both have been caught in doxing activities, which it appears at least Base Mama, if not both of them, were using the event to get people they were targeting for doxing to self-dox themselves to Kraut and his group of shitbag goons. It is an event that was billed as one about free speech and has turned out not to be. Base Mama is still treading on that premise, while using people no longer attending to promote it. It is coming out that she could very well have misrepresented the finances and there could be some shady things going on with the money. Andy Worski was talking in one of his recent videos about how now some of the people involved with Killroy and speakers are now being paid. This was never disclosed during the crowdsourcing. With all of this going on, plus a lot more, I'm sure will come out, I would suggest that anyone who bought tickets or donated to the crowdfunding, you contact State of Arizona Attorney General's office, if not the U.S. Attorney General's office, where they are taking money from around the country and world. And I would put money there is fraud going on. When Killroy implodes, and it will, with the piles of dirt being thrown on Base Mama from the hole she dug herself, she shouldn't be able to walk away with one dime of the money intended for Killroy. She should be made to pay back every dime when that time comes. If it wasn't for Dave Cullen, odds are there would never have been any Killroy and that shit show situation it has turned into. So now we are going to get back to him. Dave sold the people on a bill of goods. He should stand behind the sale of it. He was the driving factor to Killroy becoming a thing. It was his reputation that got speakers on board, people donating to the event's crowdfunding, and they're buying tickets to go see him and many others. The second the shit hit the fan with Killroy and Base Mama, what did he do? He bailed and left everyone who got involved in it, one way, shape, or form, high and dry. While doing so, when he knows the people know what is going on with Base Mama, he tried to claim that she's on the same page as him when it comes to free speech. When I heard him say that, I almost literally spit my drink onto my laptop screen. Why? Because he should have been calling her out for her shit. But that must be some damn good pussy, I tell ya, for him to be doing that while using an excuse he thinks people won't call him out on, which I'm about to. Takes a lot of balls and cowardice. I feel bad for Dave with his loss. I really do. Losing a family member is hard. It wasn't an issue for him though until the shit started hitting the fan with Killroy and the first dump of Kraut's doxing server. He is going along for 6 months perfectly fine and now all of a sudden it's an issue? That is just too fucking convenient if you ask me. Dave, there are a lot of people who put their faith in you with Killroy. Because you let that nasty blown out stank of a hole get in the way of this professional commitment, a lot of people are probably going to get fucked by her, and not in the fun way you did. Be a man. Take responsibility for the commitments you made, and make shit right. You owe that to everyone you sold Killroy on. Now for one last thing before I go. In closing, as I said, I swore to myself that I wouldn't make a video remotely like the Septic community in format or style, but I had to say what I did here. Even though I was harsh in what I said with Dave Cullen, I wanted to be known that I do respect him in general. What I was doing was bluntly calling him out while pulling no punches. I am not here to make friends. If I do make a video like this, I am here to call things as I see them. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.